Hi guys, the reason for the new setup is because I'm sat down because I'm having a bad back day, but I needed to film my August wrap up. All that being said, let's not take too long chatting and just get into it. I read a total of 20 books this month. The booktubeathon happened at the beginning of this month from the 3rd to the 9th, in which I read 7 books. I have a booktubeathon wrap up, it's all gravy. I'm just going to quickly fly by those and then jump into what else I read. So the first book I read this month was Holes by Lewis Satcher. 4 out of 5 stars, really liked this one. The next book was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. This was a really fun, quick read. 4 out of 5 stars. It was really close to getting a 5, but there were a few little things for me. I really liked this book. The next book was Deep Blue by Jennifer Donnelly. I did enjoy this book. There was again like with A Court of Thorns and Roses, a few niggly little things, but I did like it. 4 out of 5 stars. The next book was The Box of Delights by John Masefield. I really didn't like this book. There were some parts of the story that were really intriguing, but all in all, I just didn't like it, and the ending frustrated me for days. But I did like the writing in this book, so it got a 1.5 stars. The next one I read was the graphic novel, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. This is definitely a dark, black comedy graphic novel. I did like it, but because it's a bind-up, I kind of felt the story just hit a lull in some parts, but it was a decent read. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next one was Lying Out Loud by Cody Keplinger. I really did enjoy this one. It was fun and fast, a little bit predictable, also a little bit frustrating at times because there's the whole teenage trope of something's gone wrong, I must keep it a secret. But that being said, I did enjoy it and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The final booktubeathon read was Welcome to the Jungle by Jim Butcher. This is a graphic novel set before the Dresden Files and it is awesome. The artwork in this book is absolutely amazing. If you like the Dresden Files and you haven't got this yet, I suggest you pick it up. It is a really good read and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next 2 books I read this month were Siege and Storm and Rune Rising. Book 2 and Book 3 in the Bad Hugo's The Grisha trilogy. Not going to go too much into these because obviously it's Book 2 and 3. The story did drag in some parts, but overall I really liked them both. The world that Leigh Bardugo creates is very interesting and I gave them both 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. This book was a beautiful little contemporary. I highly enjoyed it. I really loved this one and it got a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Percy Jackson and the Greek Gods. This book was hilarious, but then again I don't expect anything else from Rick Riordan and Percy Jackson. I really loved this. The whole perspective of Percy Jackson's take on the Greek gods is wonderful and I can't wait to jump into the next one in the series. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Me, Earl and the Dying Girl. This book was very funny, but then again it is dealing with quite a harsh topic, so I guess you need that comedy relief. It was very interesting to see a different side of things. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil people who haven't read the book. Some of this is written in script form and that is very interesting. At points in this book I was actually laughing out loud. This is a very good book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I suggest you to go pick it up and hopefully Jessie Andrews, the author, just realising that I didn't actually tell you who it was by, will write another book soon because I really want to read more of his writing. Sorry if the setup's changed a little bit, I just had an unexpected visit from my brother, which was nice. Anyway, back to the video. The next book I read this month was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin O'Leary Sands. I honestly had no idea what this book was about going into it, it just intrigued me and the title. it just welcomed me in. So reading it, finding out what it was all about was really, really fun. I always think it's best going into a book with no knowledge or just a tiny little snippet. This book was great. I really, really enjoyed seeing things from Aristotle's point of view and seeing two very different boys coming together and having a great friendship. It was beautifully written and I liked it a lot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was The Wrath and the Dawn by Renée Ahdieh. This book surprised the heck out of me. I've never read 1001 Nights, but I understand the general concept of it. You're pretty much intrigued from the get-go, and the person that we follow, Scheherazade, is a very interesting and feisty character. It is a very well written book and I enjoyed the story a lot. The ending did seem a little rushed to me. I don't know if that was because there was a lot of things going on, and obviously I picked up the pace of my reading because I just needed to know what was happening. But the way it ended left so many questions unanswered and it gave you more things to think about. But I also felt this book was a standalone, so when I reached the end I was like, what? I'm really excited to see where this story goes. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Bill the Vampire by Rick Gutierrez, on the recommendation of my friend Nat. I really liked this book. If you're a person that doesn't like foul language, it's probably best to steer clear. Having a geek nerd game programmer be turned into a vampire, it was fun and hilarious. At some parts kind of disbelievable, but it's a story about a vampire, so I was lenient with it. I can't wait to pick up the second book in the series and see if I enjoy it as much as I did the first one. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was the Booksplosion Book of the Month, Finding Audrey. As I've said previously, this was my first ever Sophie Kinsella book and I really enjoyed it. The writing style is very light, even though it's dealing with a very serious subject of Audrey dealing with anxiety. Sometimes this book seemed a little unbelievable with how extreme events happened, and sometimes it felt like we were focusing too much on the war between Frank and their mum. But overall, Sophie Kinsella's writing, she writes about the whole family and how Audrey's anxiety has affected every member of the family. It is a very good book and I want to pick up more of Sophie Kinsella's stuff. I highly enjoyed it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This is a collection of 5 novellas following Selena before the events of Throne of Glass. I did like some novellas better than others, and parts of it did frustrate me with how naive Selena was. I did like it. It was interesting to see her pre-Throne of Glass series. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. Holy crap, this book was good. It completely surprised me. The writing is absolutely beautiful. You are completely hooked from the prologue. I absolutely love this book. I try not to jump on bandwagons because half the time books never live up to the hype. But with this, the hype is absolutely well deserved. If you haven't read it, please go do. I honestly don't want to say anything about the story because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. If you don't like it, I don't think we can be friends. There, I said it. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. The next book I read this month was Hollow City, also by Ransom Riggs, the sequel to Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Coming off the back of reading Miss Peregrine's, read this in one sitting. It is action-packed and great fun. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars just because it didn't floor me as well as Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I'm really excited to read Library of Lost Souls, and Ransom Riggs has become one of my auto-buy authors. This is a great series so far. The last book I read this month was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I loved this book, but then again I have loved every other book that Victoria Schwab, V.E. Schwab, has written. No matter what Victoria Schwab writes, it is completely engrossing from the first couple of pages. She's another author for me. Delving into this book, I got a very Doctor Who vibe, but instead of aliens, it's magic. Kel's character is very interesting, but I really love Lila. She is a no-holds-barred, kicking ass and taking names kind of girl, which is the kind of girl we all love, let's be fair. And in this book we get a slight hint of a backstory developing with Lila, and I honestly can't wait to see where that goes. I really enjoyed this book. I will do a full-on book review for some of these books that I read this month. And this one got a 5 out of 5 stars. So that's all the books I read this month. Please comment down below, tell me which books you'd like a full review on. Also your thoughts and opinions on any of these books I've mentioned. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys later. Bye! You can already see what I'm pulling because, you know, they're in frame. But I can't put them anywhere else. For this one I can drink tea. Don't have to hold anything. I'm blind. Ow. I'm so pale. So pale. Shush.